Okay, good evening once again, everyone. I trust you've had a good week. My name is Maji, as you all know, and like I said, tonight we'll be talking about the monitoring and controlling phase of project management. We'll be looking at both waterfall and agile as we did the last time, as project management approach. So, over tonight's course, like I said, it will be the fourth one of the five phases. We've done the initiation, project planning, project execution, and then we're just looking at the monitoring and controlling. And by next week, we should be finishing up with the project closing. And we hope to now have, after that, run just workshops to get questions from people, just discuss generally the practical aspect of things or any area that we're having challenges in. So, but tonight is for the control, monitoring and controlling aspect. So over the course of tonight, we'll try and cover this following aspects. We'll look at the meaning, processes, artifacts, and few examples. We'll look at the meetings during this phase and the key attendees of those meetings. And then we'll try and touch also on the importance of this phase in project management. That's okay with everyone. Okay, so we'll start off with the um trying to understand what we mean by monitoring and controlling phase of project management. So it's like I said, it's the fourth phase, and or is a phase that focuses on tracking, reviewing, and regulating the project progress and performance. Okay. During this phase, you want to ensure that the project stays on schedule within the budget and that it aligns also with the scope and the quality and the requirement of the the clients or the end users, so to say. So that would be the purpose really of this phase. And as a result, it involves identifying any deviation from the project plan. You remember we talked about the project plan. During the project plan is a document that is created during the planning stage that contains everything that needs to be done. So during the monitoring and controlling phase, you want to ensure on the project, on the waterfall side, we want to ensure that things stays within that plan, that is there's no deviation as much. So it's more of the controlling aspect when it comes to waterfall. And then even adjustment is minimal when it comes to waterfall. Okay. So adjusting and just ensuring that the project gets back on track as much as possible. So there's no much deviation in it. And that project plan is used to do that. So it's about tracking the progress, ensuring that they keep to the plan that has been made, the upfront plan that has been made. Okay. So this phase also runs throughout the project when it comes to agile. We know agile, the whole thing works together. The tracking, the adjustment and everything is ongoing in when it comes to agile. It doesn't happen at a particular stage. It's happen from the start. That's when the tracking, the reviewing, the adjustment and everything starts. Also in waterfall, there's a bit of monitoring from the onset. Okay, so during the initiation stage and all that, while they're doing the initiation, while they're even reviewing the project plan before it is signed off, there's a bit of monitoring because when you're reviewing it, you're monitoring things also to say, okay, how will this work and everything before that plan is signed off. So there's a bit of monitoring kind of in all the phases. But there's in waterfall, there's a particular phase where after the execution or during the execution of the project, that's where you have a bit of the monitoring and controlling as well, like I said, so that there's no deviation too much from the plan. So from initiation to close and even includes several ongoing activities, like we said, the progress tracking, scope verification, so that there not too much scope creep, the risk management, the risk register you have in place. It is during the execution or any of the phases where those risks fall into that you start monitoring it and controlling it with the mitigation plan that you've put in place. There's quality control when you start thinking about, or we want to release at this particular phase, talking about agile, there is that um, control quality control. We want to ensure that performance-wise, the thereabout of whatever is going to be released, is aligning very well. We're not going to release something that will crash and all that. So there's the quality control before the release. While it's at pre-pod, there's that quality control to check that everything is okay, and there's also stakeholders communication when it comes to Agile that goes throughout all the processes or another stage phases or circles, let me put it that way, because Agile doesn't have the faces, they have circles, the iteration in place. Okay, so that is what the monitoring and the controlling phase is all about. There is a particular phase in waterfall, which I'll say starts from the execution, but again, it cuts across all the phases. And then we know that when it comes to Agile, it's all about tracking, it's all about ensuring that we're getting feedback, we're reviewing, we are adjusting based on feedback, we are reflecting, and then we're improving as we go along. Okay, so that is that phase. Okay, so we want to look at the process of this particular phase. What are some steps, activities that are in place that needs to happen during this phase? When you talk about monitoring, when you talk about controlling, some things just need, kind of to be done. So those are the things that we want to look at. And just like we did the other time, also we just look across how it's done in waterfall, how it's done in Agile. Not that we're comparing, because we did say that both approaches are suitable to the projects they are suitable to. Okay, so we're not putting one down and lifting another one. They are both two good approaches based on the projects that is being worked on for either of them. Okay, so the first process step we want to look at is the defined metrics and set baseline. In waterfall, the goal for that is to measure any deviation from this baseline as the project progresses. We said that we talked about having that project plan. So you want to stay within that boundaries. We want to stay within it. They want to control it so that this is what we said we'll do. Based on this is what we have set the budget. Based on the timeline and what is here is where we've set the budget. So if we're going to deviate out of this, if the stakeholders are coming back and saying, oh, can you add this new requirement to it and everything, there's a lot of sitting down and extra planning that goes into that project plan. That project plan is revisited again. We're adding that new requirement into it, and we're telling them every aspect of that plan that would be that new requirement is going to impact. It's going to impact the budget, because the resources that you have in place already based on that budget, you're going to tell them that, okay, we're going to maybe even at times lead to an extension of the timeline. So all those informations you need to let them know, even though you have your reserves and all that. But remember that whatsoever you've been given initially before the new requirements come is meant for that first part. That is what the budget is meant for. So in a situation where they're bringing a new a new requirement that is going to extend your timeline, it's better to tell them also that the budget will also be impacted with that. Because if you use your reserve to cover up the new requirement, then when the miscellaneous that you put that reserve in comes in, there's nothing that you'll be able to spend to that. So it's better to let them know. In short, with waterfall, once that new requirement comes in, there is a lot of adjustments. The upfront plans start all over again. They start adding to things, updating things and everything, getting sign-offs again because of the new requirements that has come in. Which when it comes to Agile, it's expected, because it's Agile. We respond to change quickly and all that. It's expected, and because it's iterative, we have circles and all that. It comes in during review. At times it comes in and the response to it is quicker. There's no delay, so to say. So baseline, this step, controlling the baseline, that's how waterfall controls the baseline. There's a lot of going back to plans, going back to sign-offs, a lot of negotiations again and everything in order to get that sign off again because of that new requirement that comes in. But we know when it comes to Agile, it's taking on, it's continuous. Okay, so with Agile, the goal is to deliver the maximum value within each sprint time frame. So adjusting the baseline goal is as needed for the future sprint. So when we do a review in this particular sprint A, we do the review, and the feedback from the stakeholders is, oh, I want you to add this, which is a new requirement. By the time we're planning for the next sprint, well, the PO definitely would have, the product owner would have written the story for that new requirement. If it is priority for the next sprint we're going on to, it stays at the top of the backlog, and that is planned with what needed to be done. But like I said, when it comes to waterfall, it's a bit different because there's going to be a lot of things that needs to be done. Okay, so that's for the steps. So they with waterfall uses that defined metrics and baseline more. It's a bit loose and flexible when it comes to agile, but much more rigid when it comes to waterfall. Also, there's the second step is now tracking the progress of what is being done. So there's execution going on, you're tracking the progress. So with waterfall, the goal there is to detect any deviation. Like I said earlier, no, they're working with the project plan. This is what we said we're going to do now. Is that what they're doing now? Is there a deviation? Why are we deviating? And then the rigors that, just like we explained, when there's a new requirement, the rigors of the deviation and everything, how it affects the timeline, how it affects the budget. Is it within the budget? Is it part of what we said? It's like, kind of do taking a checklist. This is what we said we've done. Is that what we're doing and all that? That is rigid, with waterfall and all that. But when it comes to agile, we make daily adjustment because of this daily stand-up. At times, a new requirement doesn't even need to get to the next sprint. If it is very critical, if it takes priority over what we're working on in the sprint, during the daily stand-up, they can make that adjustment, make that plan, make that decision as a group together, bring out, negotiate with the PO, find what is of low priority to bring out in order to accommodate that critical requirements coming in. It might not be a new requirement, it can be something going on in prod that needed to be fixed as quickly as possible and all that, because clients or end users have been affected and all that. And it's all about value to Agile. So that is being worked on. So there's always that daily adjustment, which helps the tracking. So their own is more of a daily tracking and progress of things. With waterfall, it might not be daily, it might be picked up maybe at the end of a phase. That's when they're picking some things of which would have taken time. Time to adjust and do things. For example, in waterfall, we're talking about when you're building, when you're having a building, when you're in construction now. If it is during the time when the design is being made and all that, the architects, they've done the design, they've made the model, they've specified, the measurements and everything and all that. If it's a building, the foundation has been laid. What needs to be done in the foundation has been done. They've started, they've cemented things up, they started the building in the foundation. We have to do this and that and everything. They can't go back to the foundation. Do you understand? So to go and make that correction any longer. But if it had been while the foundation had been laid, if you had allowed maybe the way agile is, the stakeholders to come in to have a look at things and everything, maybe that correction that is being found out after the foundation has been laid and the building has started would have been dealt with as soon as. But at the same time, having said that, though, with construction, the measurements are fixed. So when you're talking about an architect and all that, he's not the only one that just do the building do the measurement, the specifications and bring it and all that. Even the builders themselves are experts in what they're doing. So if there's been a mistake or something like that in the plan that they've received, they would have called, while they're doing that, they would have called the attention of the architects to it, because it's more of is a controlled project, kind of is a controlled environment where mistakes are minimal, so to say, if I can put it that way. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but let's just say it is a bit minimal. So they track the progress, and then the third step is identifying and managing the risk. During the planning stage also, we talked about the register about some risk that maybe even while you're planning, you know that, okay, it's possible that this happens. And then when that is known and everything is in the risk register, so at the time when it happened, it might happen, because a risk doesn't mean that it's not an issue. So it's not as if, oh, it's going to happen. So let's just put it, in the plan that if it happens, this is how we're going to kind of manage it. So the goal for that step is to manage predefined risk and avoid impacting the overall timeline and budget. So there's a mitigation plan that has been put in place, and it's just so that that is managed, because there's been a risk assessment. There would have been, during the planning stage, there would have been risk awareness and risk management, risk assessment. They've assessed it. Usually they've conducted this upfront, with limited reevaluation. So whatever they've even done while they are planning might not be ideal when that thing happens, because we can say, oh, if this happened, this is what we're going to do. But when it happens, really, we don't know the impact. We just assume the impact, and that's, planning upfront. They just assume the impact. But when the risk now formally happens, but because it's documented already and it's being tracked, it might not fall with schedule, as scheduled or as they've planned and everything. Let's assume that an example would be that, okay, if some of the materials we're going to get, excuse me, we're going to get from this person, because we're able to meet up with the person. We've signed a contract with this third party supplier, and they're able to supply us and everything. Who says at that time, when those, and especially if there are materials that you can't get before time, you can't just store them in a place and everything, is as good as you getting them when you need them and all that. What if that third supplier goes out of business, by the time you need it and everything and all that? It's part of the risk that you would have written down and all that. One thing that they need to know is, maybe one of their mitigation plan is, oh, we'll get another supplier, or we have another supplier and everything, but that supplier will sell to you at another price. It won't be the same price. So if you've done your costing, you put it in the budget that, oh, the whole cement that will be needed will be 1,000 at this so price and everything, and that's what you've put in the budget and everything. Even at that time when you need that thing, that supplier might come back to you to say, oh, the price of things have gone up. I can't sell it to you for what I quote. Is a quote, is an estimate you got, not absolute fixed price thing and everything. And if that goes up and all that, those are part of the things you want to put in your risk. That there's probability that price will go on, and that's why you have your reserve also in your budget, because you would have put that into consideration. When it comes to agile, they identify and manage the risk. The goal is to address and mitigate risk in real time. So you come to the standoff, there is an impediment that the your team members, either the developers or the QAs are talking about. The team is meeting, they are planning, who can resolve this for us? How can it be resolved? Is it a member of the team that can resolve it? Do we need another team in the organization to be able to resolve it and all that? So it is in real time. It's dealt with as at when it happens. So we identify it, we manage it as at when it happens. And because of the daily communication, the daily stand-up, it helps to minimize the disruption. Is not as much as it would be, because daily we're giving updates daily. So there are some risks that even before we identify them, or even when we identify them, somebody identified them, there is already a plan in place to manage it or to mitigate it, because it has always been, a daily occurrence meeting. The review also helps to minimize disruption as much as possible, because you're carrying the stakeholders along as you're going. They are giving you information, you're engaging with them, you're giving them updates, and things just get carried along as you're going on. So it's minimal when it comes to agile, but when it comes to waterfall, again, it might be minimal and it might be big, because the risk we've planned ahead, like maybe 6 months or 9 months before the risk happened, and things might have changed. Definitely from 9 months, things will not just be static or be the same, when it comes to things like that. But again, depending on the kind of project it is. Construction, yeah, you can say that when it comes to construction, if you're talking about the four corners of the four structures or the four corners holding up a building and everything, that won't change overnight. It's not going to change, to anything. So depending on the project, depending on the profession, the field, things might look a bit more fixed and more controlled when it comes to the risk management. When it comes to project management, when you come to the software aspect of things, it might not be as good as it would be if it had been agile. Okay, so another one is how to implement the change. So with waterfall, the goal is to limit change as much as possible. Like we said, they we try to follow that plan, follow the schedule on the plan, follow the plan sequence. We do this first and we do that and everything and all that, because changing or implementing change, it will cause delay. There is a timeline that is being followed. So it will cause a change. There is a budget that is being followed. There will be an extension, like I said earlier on, to any changes. There will be an overrun and all that. So that's why they try to ensure that the plan is kept to as much as possible. However, agile accommodates change. Agile is all about change. One of the things that agile thrives on is responding quickly to change because of its flexibility, because of its adaptability to be able to change. And that's because they carry the business along, with things. And the more the requirements are evolving, because they are ready to they are ready to respond to change as quickly as possible, adjust things as they go along and everything. It accommodates change easily. It's flexible to accommodate change easily. So there is also the review and the reflection step also. So with waterfall, the goal is to document lesson learned and then apply it to future projects that they will work on. So their own review comes maybe at the end of a phase, or even at the end of the project. That's when they do their review and that's when they do the reflecting. However, we know that in agile it's a continuous process. At the end of every sprint, there is review, there is also the retrospective where the reflection comes in. So it's continuous and it helps to improve the process, it helps to improve the quality as the team goes on. It boosts productivity. And the teams are satisfied, the stakeholders also are satisfied because of the improvement and the improvement being put into place, the reviewing, the feedback they receive, and all that. So that helps things further for the agile team. Okay, so so that's for the process. Those are the 5 steps of the process of monitoring and controlling. So it's all about tracking the process, monitoring what is going on. Controlling with agile is more with waterfall is more of controlling, ensuring that the plan is kept to as much as possible. Where with agile, we know it's all about flexibility, adapting to change, responding to change, getting those review feedbacks, acting upon them, which increases quality and productivity, so to say, and gives satisfaction to the stakeholders at the end of the day. So we want to look at some of the artifacts that are being used during this phase. So the first one in waterfall that we know, because that's what they are kind of monitoring against, is the project plan, which we talked about initially during the planning phase of things. Okay, so the artifact there, the purpose of the project plan, we all know it has as the baseline, to track what is being done. This is what we have in the plan. Is that what we're still doing? Have we deviated from it? And the managers use it, the project managers use it to compare the actual progress against the plan timelines and the project. And if there's going to be any deviation, like I said, meetings will have to be called so that the plan is adjusted, which, like we said, is going to take long because a lot of things would be updated, so to say, on that plan. Because if it affects one part of that plan, definitely it's going to affect everything. If it affects the timeline, it's going to affect the scope, it's going to affect the budget, it's going to affect the resources. The resource plan will be done again. We will need this person for more time. You're going to negotiate with that person to say that, okay, we said at the end of 1 year, that's when we want to do the project, but now it's going to go to 1 year, 6 months. So you're going to negotiate, the price for that 6 months again and everything. So it touches on every aspect when it comes to waterfall. When it comes to okay, so I'm just going to take the artifacts for waterfall and then we'll come to the artifacts for agile so that I'm not mixing them together because they are different. They are not like the steps where we're saying how the step works for this one and how the step works for the other one. So when it comes to the artifacts for the two approaches, they're different. So the second artifact for waterfall is the progress report. So the purpose of that document is to give reports. These are the reports that informs the stakeholders of the project status and help them to identify any deviation from the plan, like we said. So once that deviation is in place, that progress report is the one that gives them the information, why it's coming in, why did it come in, what happened, and everything and all that. It has to be a concrete reason why that deviation is coming in, if it's coming into the plan at all. Okay, so that's what that progress report is. Even if there are no deviation, there are no new things and all that, there's still a progress report that is given as the project is going ahead. So there are documents that outline the status of the project. It just gives a status. Also, this is where we are. It summarizes the completed tasks, any delays, any resource usage, any potential issues, and all that. This is where your RAID report comes in. Are we on track? Is it amber? What is the mitigation plan? Are we going according to the timeline that has been stated, for that particular phase and all that? That is the progress report that comes in during that time. And then we also have the artifact, the milestone review, or some people call it the phase gate review. And that is a document. The purpose of that document is to give review to ensure that at the end of this phase, this is the quality, to confirm the readiness to move into the next phase of things, allow adjustment if possible, maybe in the next phase because of something that had happened or any bit of minimal deviation that had happened in the current phase. Going into the next phase, there has to be some few adjustments either to the timeline, like I've said, or to the resources if needed. That would be put into that document, that milestone review. It will be put into it so that they are aware, and it's a formal assessment, and it's conducted, like I said, at the end of each phase to ensure that all the objectives for that phase they've all been met. And like I said, if there's need to adjust the other ones and all that, that will be put into that review before the next phase starts. And then we also have the risk register, which I've talked about. While we're tracking and everything, we're looking at the risk register as this risk happened. The purpose for that, like I said, is to monitor and manage the project risk, updating the status as they go along, tracking the mitigation effort also. So this is the mitigation action we've put in place. Who is the owner of that action? What is the timeline for that person to do that action? And by the time the action is completed, was it done to timeline? Was it overdue and everything and all that? Those are the kind of information you record, in the risk register, and use it to track risks that are being managed or being managed. Yeah, that's the word, being managed as they go along. Okay, so that's what the risk register is for waterfall. And again, it's also an artifact for this phase. The other one is the change request or change log. So there's a change request, and that change, depending on the number of change requests that you get, you also have a change log where you log all those requests into, just for record purpose. So the purpose of that artifact is to control and document changes. It's all about changes, scope changes that needs to come in. It helps to manage the impact of the changes of the project. So those are part of the things where there are changes and all that. These documents are being completed, they are being signed off also, and everything. You can see that while all this is going on, is even eaten into time also, because you prepare it, you get it signed, you call them into a meeting, explain things to them, back and forth and all that, signing that document and everything before that change is even implemented in waterfall. Okay, so that's another artifact that you have during this process that is being used. And then you have the variance analysis report. Okay, so the purpose is to identify and analyze any deviation from the plan, allowing corrective actions to be taken. So what that variance analysis report does is, this was what we planned. We talked about the planned and the actual. And then what is the difference? That is what that report gives, because that helps the stakeholders, to say that, okay, this was what we planned. This was what we agreed. We agreed 1 million because of some changes that we brought in or we requested for, and everything is now going into, kind of 1.5 million. Are they still able to, do they still have the budget to cover that 500,000 that is coming in and all that? That is what that reports, and they need it. We can't just say, oh, it's this amount and everything. What you tell somebody verbally, they can easily forget, but what you have in a report, and you get them to sign on it and everything, at the end of the day, goes a very long way. So that is another artifact that is being used, just to calculate the values and the variances from the planned and the actual. And then the other one for waterfall is the quality control report. Okay, so the purpose of that report is to ensure that deliverables meet the quality standard defined at the start of the project. So there will be a quality control team that will be checking things out. Does it meet with quality and all that? Now, quality control reports would be, if you compare it with Agile, would be what the QAs are doing in Agile. So during the testing stage, it's a phase. So during the testing phase and all that, once the testers do their quality control and all that, testing and everything, that report is what they would have to document and keep as a record of that phase. So they document quality assessments, any issues with deliverable that needs to be corrected and all that, which, at times when it comes to waterfall, again, depending on the kind of project it's being used for. But if it's being used for any software development, by the time it comes to that phase and the testers are picking things up, it's going to cause extension on timeline, is going to cost budget, is going to cost more money to go back and kind of make that correction. And that's why at times, if waterfall is being used for a software project and all that, by the time they're going back to do that correction and everything and all that, the organization or the client might have even forgotten about that app or that product itself. It becomes obsolete, and then they lose interest in it, because software happens to be a cutting edge. It's not static, it's not fixed, is always moving, it's complex, it's always changing and all that. So that's why that was what brought about the birth of Agile anyway, to say that it's not that suited for that kind of environment or for that kind of project, so to say. So those are the few artifacts we have for waterfall. So quickly, we just go back just to look at the one for Agile. So when we're looking at the one for Agile, we know that one of the artifacts in Agile is you have the product backlog, and the purpose of the product backlog is to guide each sprint, allow the teams to focus on high priority items while keeping the lower priority items for later consideration. So you have the product backlog item, and we know that that is where the list of all the requirements, at least the main requirements, apart from the ones that I knew that will come in later on, or the ones that would come in based on review, when they come in, though, that is the kind of, should I say, a shelf that you put all the list of all the requirements, what the client requires for that product. That is where it's put. It's a dynamic list, and it's where all the desired features, functionalities, enhancements, upgrades, improvements, where the product owner prioritizes them, and then the monitoring and controlling is carried out during the refinement sessions. So during the refinement session is when they reprioritize things based on maybe new requirements that have come in and all that, or based on the fact that the client doesn't want a particular feature anymore that's become obsolete. The product owner goes there, reprioritize things, refinement, to come to refinement, to realign again, to say, okay, this is what the vision is. We're still keeping to that. And in keeping to that, this is how we work things out, give clarity as much as is needed. And that helps the developers or the development team to also estimate things and see where they are and how they're going to work things. So the product owner at that refinement is looking at, this is how we're going to do it based on business needs and all that. The developers, QAs, they're coming into that refinement to say, okay, technically, it can't work the way you've said it. We can't do number one first without doing number three first, because number one is dependent on number three working. So number one might be a front view requirement, while number three, the way the product owner has arranged it, is a back end requirement that needs to be in place first before the front end is done. So they are collaborating, discussing and agreeing and arranging the backlog based on priority, based on dependency, so to say. So that's how they monitor, and that's how they try to arrange things so that it works well. So that's the product backlog. And then we know that the sprint backlog is a subset of the product backlog. So the sprint backlog, the purpose of that is to serve as, the short-term project plan. We can call it a mini plan for the sprint that we're going into. And it just helps the team to, keep track of and prioritize work based on the sprint. These are the things that the PO wants us to work on during the sprint and everything. Do the team have the capacity to do it? Do the team have the skill set to do it? And everything and all that. That's at that meeting, that is the artifact where they pick work, that gives a list of what will be done during the sprint. And you can see even from the names, it's the sprint backlog. So it's more like saying the sprint list of work that needs to be done. That's what the product backlog is. Now, the daily stand-up meeting notes, I know might be new to a few of us and all that, but during the stand-up, there are some planning that are done. There are some agreements based on maybe things that happen maybe to one of the team. Let's assume that somebody has an impediment and he brought it up during the stand-up and everything, and then we're saying, oh, okay, so person is going to help to resolve that and everything and all that, in order for that decision not to kind of drop off. So the meeting notes are not written really in, maybe you get a Word document and you write it in. No. But when you put those little notes that you put on the Teams channel, the Teams group chat and all that, those are the meeting notes, and they form artifacts. There are some teams that they don't put theirs even on their channel. They put it inside the story. So let's assume that A is working on story B now, and he says, oh, I'm having this issue, I'm not able to do da. And another team member C says, oh, let's meet after this meeting, I'm able to help you and everything and all that. And you don't want that to fall off, or even if the person is giving the advice or what needs to be done or what could be done to resolve that thing during that meeting, that, oh, all you need to do is just do da. It's better to put it in the discussion column of that particular story that person is having an issue with, so that by the time he goes back to work on it, it might not be immediately, by the time he goes back to work on it, he's able to remember to say, oh, was what so said concerning this and everything. Another one could be during that stand-up again, we're having a meeting and we're saying, oh, I've done this that I needed to do and everything, but there's this part that I think it's not me that I need to do it, somebody else has to do one thing or the other and everything. And then they are saying, oh, it's Charlie that needs to review something you need to do today. They're putting all those notes, they are putting all those information down, like I said, either in the discussion column of that particular user story itself, or on their Teams channel and everything, and tagging the person that needs to do one thing or the other out. So those are meeting notes, and they form artifacts when it comes to Agile, because like I said, you need them in order to complete work that needs to be done. You don't want to come back to the next stand-up and say, sorry, I forgot what was said concerning this and everything and all that. So you want to put that there. For an ADM, for a Scrum Master also, you also little notes that you jot down during the the stand up and everything forms part of your meeting notes, because there are times when you jot those notes down, you go and send a message, a direct message to that person that, oh, don't forget, just a gentle reminder that you're supposed to help this person to do this, or don't forget that you're supposed to reach out to to help you to do this and everything and all that. If you have not jotted down that note, you will forget. And like I said, the team member also can forget, and that would come back. It looks somehow if it's coming back at the stand up again to say that, oh, I've forgotten, or it looks really, really bad, because like I said, as an ADM, APM, or Scrum Master, you need to be there for the team. Most times when they're having this daily stand-up meetings and everything, while they're giving their updates or somebody else is giving updates and everything, they forget things. There are times when somebody has given his own update and others are giving their own updates and everything. He's just doing his work. He's there in the meeting, but they're doing their work. They do that a lot and everything. So you have to be there. You have to be the voice of everybody, noting down things that are being said and everything, so that you help them to keep those information or share those information as gentle reminders for them to help them resolve issues, and then just to ensure that whatever adjustment has been put in place and everything is actually carried out at the end of the day. The other artifact for Agile is the increment. We all know that at the end of every sprint, it's all about the increment. What valuable or productive increment has been added to, or should I use the word working increment, has been added at the end of the sprint. And when you do your demo is when you see the increment, because when you're doing the demo to the stakeholders, you show them this is the goal for the sprints, for this and this and this to be able to happen, and then you show them that that is happening and all that. And based on that increment is when they give feedback to say, oh, it's fine with me, or oh, can you do this and that and everything. And then in the next sprint, you adjust that feedback, and then either the PO gets back to them to let them know that, oh, that thing that has been done has been done. There are times when some team has it in their process. So there are ways of working to say that if it's not urgent, if it's not something that the stakeholder needs immediately, during the next review, they can just show them that during the last review, you said you wanted this, that has been done and everything and all that, this is it and all that. But this on this sprint, this also is what we worked on and everything, depending on how busy, like I said, the stakeholders are. It might not be people that you can get into the meeting immediately to tell them, and that's why you would do that. Okay, quickly, also, we want to look at some of the artifacts, the ones that read the metrics for Agile. You look at the burn down charts. The purpose is to help, keep the team on track. So that's another very good artifact during this phase, or throughout the phase, let me say, because Agile doesn't have a phase, it has more like circle. So throughout the repetitive circle, you will have for every sprint, you'll have a burn down chart for every sprint, and then it helps to determine if they're on target with what needs to be done, if they're on target in completing the sprint backlog. The burn down chart is able to help them to do it. And we all know that is a graphical representation of what the work that is remaining versus the time that is left during the sprint, and it shows daily progress also towards sprint completion. So with that chart, you're able to determine where did we have a bottleneck, where was the line flat, what happened during that time, reflect that during the retrospective, put plan in place to how to manage whatever issue that caused that flatness and all that, so that you improve in the other sprint that you're going into. Also, we have the velocity chart. So with the velocity chart, the purpose of that chart is to monitor the team's performance, predict future sprint capacities, and adjust the plan accordingly. So the velocity chart is a chart that is also a graphical representation that is the reading on it is being used over a period of time. Okay, but what it does is to help to predict future sprint capacity. So when you're doing your planning, you're able to look at what the reading is, what your velocity, because the velocity talks about pace, isn't it? Looking at the pace and the reading, and then using that to help the team to make adjustments and make plan as they go along. It tracks the team's capacity to complete work each sprint. It measures either story points, if that is what it has been configured to measure. If it is the user story that is being configured to measure, it measures it per sprint. It is able to give a reading of average velocity. It helps the team to guide what they can take in going forward, because after a period of time, he's able to give an average velocity to look at, okay, looking at maybe the 4 sprints that you've worked on, this is the average velocity that your team should be working on, maybe average story points that your team should be working on, or average user stories that your team should be working on in the next sprint. And you use that as a guideline. If the team keeps using that as a guideline, they get to a point where they know their pace as a team. And then if your average velocity is saying maybe 90, and you're meeting up to that 90 maybe for 2 sprints or 3 sprints, there might be a time where the team says, let's just take it to 95. Let's take 95 in. Let's see how we do. Are we able to complete it? So gradually they are increasing their capacity they're increasing their velocity as they go on. And that talks about they are getting better, they are getting well experienced, their skills, they are upskilling in their skills, they have better domain knowledge, and it's helping them to increase as they go along. So that's another good artifact when it comes to Agile. Also, the risk or impediment log. So when there are impediments that are reported and all that, we log that down. We log down with what the issue is, the date, who is reporting it, what impact is it going to make, who can resolve it, what does that person do to resolve it, timeline of resolving. Also, you put that down, and that helps to track, again, track issues that are resolved. There is a record that can be revisited in the case where that impediment happens again, to know, oh, how was it resolved, who resolved it. If the person is not around, is there any other person that can look at what was done to resolve it? And that's why you need that column to know that what was done to resolve the impediment and all that. Is there another person that is able to do that in order to resolve the issue? And what that helps to do is to help not to get delayed in the workflow of the team. Okay, so because it's a detailed document, it helps to look at the timeline that it was resolved. Like I said, if the person that did it is not around, can somebody else also, do the same thing? Does that person have the same skill sets to be able to do that? The person that resolved the impediment might not even be a member of that Scrum team. You understand? It might be another team that is needed to do it, and it just for the Scrum Master to be able to reach out to say, hey, we had this issue, so time, so person from your team was able to help resolve it. If that person is around to resolve it, yeah. If he's not around, is there another member of that particular external team, maybe the IT department, infrastructure department, are they able to do it? Sharing with them what was done so that they are also able to help in order to resolve that impediment quickly, so that it doesn't impede or be a blocker sort of to the team as they go along. So that is the artifacts we have for Agile. So we're just going to look at some few examples of those artifacts. So, we talked about the progress report. So a progress report can look like this. Now, this has been created, I think, with Excel. I'm using Excel a lot in most of the templates because it's easy to create all the most of the artifacts on Excel. And if you can do it on Excel, believe me, you can do it on any template that your organization is using, because what matters most is the content that needs to be on the document you're creating. So for this one, you can see the project name, you can see the project manager's name has to be there. The project sponsor is not a must, but this is just an example, the dates, and then you have the rack status also being there. You will talk about the progress and the achievement, as you can see, time items that for escalation, if there is any, it will be able to put it there. It talks about the milestone description. Is it the initiation stage we're talking about? The timeline for that stage, from what time to what time? What's the rack status? Is it green? Is it green on track? Is it red, which means okay, that is critical. It's gone way overdue, or is it amber, which shows potential risk, and all that. Who is the owner of it? If there's a risk or anything, who is the owner of it, and then comment and all that. So this gives information. So by the time you have this and you're sharing information with stakeholders, you're able to kind of, should I use the word comport or compose yourself, because you have everything written down, you will not talk yourself out of that progress report or progress update that you needed to give and all that. So this is an example. You can see all the fields that are there. There's not a must that all of them has to be filled, depending on the particular phase that you're on. You're able to give that. And then you can see at the bottom one also talking about the top 5 risks or issues, listing the name or the details of the issue, the severity, is it critical, is it low, is it high, what action needs to be taken, who is the owner of that action that needed to be taken. And at the bottom where you have the role highlighted in blue, you can see also they're giving the information about the budget that has been spent, what percentage of the total budget. Also the project manager is able to put that there in sharing that information and carrying the stakeholders along. Okay, so this is the milestone one that we talked about, milestone review. You can see again, all the project details needs to be there. Like an example, this one has been filled. Just to give an example, you can see is Project Orion. You can see the name of the project manager, Smith. And then you have the milestone. The milestone, the first one is the project kickoff. That is at that's at the initial stage. You have the design sign off, which is at the planning stage. You have the milestone description also is there. The milestone type is there. Is using red to say mandatory. And you can see the green is just optional. So we might do it, we might not do it. And then you have the date column also saying that if the date is applicable or not. So this can also be created through Excel spreadsheet, and then you just fill in the place. So this is just giving us an example of what those documents look like, so that it's not all about just running you through without showing you examples of them. And then when we talk about a change request, so this is a change request form. So in waterfall, when there is a change request coming from the client, because you don't want to take it at face value. You don't just want the verbal information and everything. You want to detail everything down. You want to get them to sign up. So normally there is a change board. So the change board are the ones that discusses what needs to be done. So at times it has to do with the project manager is on that board. The maybe UI UX designer might be there, because depending on what the change is, you might need them to also change the design a bit and all that. But there is a change board that need all to sign that they agree to it, they've signed off on it, that it can happen. And then you can see all the different fields that needs to be filled there. The project name has to be there, who is requesting for that change has to be there, the date that request was made, the change number, depending on, so it could be, this one could be 001. If it's another change, it could be 002, depending and all that. And then you want to look at the change category. Like I said, with waterfall, once you put a change in, every aspect has to be touched. You can see the schedule, the cost, the scope, requirements, testing quality, resources, every aspect would need also to be updated, because every aspect will be impacted by that change that comes in. And you can see the different one. Does this change affect whatever aspect it affects? Also needs to be said. Is it a corrective action? Is it a preventive action? Is it a defect repair? Whatever update that change, whatever it is also put there. Then you describe what the change that is being requested is. You describe the reason for the change. You describe all the alternatives that has been considered before, they've now agreed that, okay, this is the way forward. There's nothing else we can do, but we just need to make that change, and everything that's put there. Describe any technical change required to implement this change. Like I said, it touches everything, and everything has to be documented down before they sign and they approved, that. And you can see by the time this document is filled, like I said, there's a change board. They all have to review it. They all have to jump on a meeting to do that review and everything and all that. And then once it's signed off, the change is being implemented, so to say. And then when you have that change request document, you also have a change log. So the change log is just listing all the change requests that we've had. That's what your change log does. So you can see also at the top the project name, the project manager's name is there, the last date it was updated is there. So at the bottom where you have the table itself, you can see that change number is there. So if it is 001, they'll put it there, the date of request and everything. So this is just a log to keep record of all the changes, all the change requests that they have. So all those forms that you have and everything, you have one document that is keeping record of all the changes, that has been put in place and everything and all that. So you can see that that is also put there. So that's how or what a change log looks like. And then we want to look at the variance. We talked about the variance analysis reports, looking at what the actual was, what the budget is, what is the variance, what is the difference. So you some list the difference in numbers, some leave the difference also in percentage and everything, and all that you can see it listed. So if you look at, and this one is listed with months, you can see in January the actual is 4,000 plus, meanwhile the budget is 2,000 plus. And then the variance, the difference that they've had to spend is the 1,000 plus that they've had to spend. When it comes to the February one, they spent less, they budgeted more, they spent less and all that. So all those variances needs to be put in place for the stakeholders to see, especially in a situation where you feel that, okay, the request is going to be made or requests are already been made for more resources, depending on what the issue is and all that. You also want to keep this record so that it's part of the documents, that you're able to show them, a part of the artifact also for waterfall. And then we talked about the quality control aspect of things. So the quality control people, the testers also, they want to keep a record of all the quality control, whatever they've done, and any test they've done, any issue they found and everything, they want to list that down. What's the priority? You can see for the first one, the installation one that says not connecting as designed. It says the imperfections there. So the imperfections, you see, there could be the number of defects that was found during that installation and all that. Who identified it? That's the tester that found it out. Who needs to fix it? Could be the developer that worked on it. And then you can see the priority there. Is it critical? Is it low? Is it medium? What's the status? Has it been closed? Is it still open? The date it's open, the date it's closed. If there is any comment, all those things come into that document. And what that tester is using this document to do, is kind of to cover themselves. So they don't want a situation where it comes to say, oh, these defects escaped into production, and then the tester is being maybe blamed to say that, oh, didn't you notice it? Didn't you see it? Oh, well, but I raised it. So person was meant to fix it and all that. On my report is still saying open, it wasn't closed and everything and all that. So they are also using this document, kind of to keep to cover their own backs also, so that they don't have issue and all that. And it's a document, again, like I said, when things are being investigated or looked into, they can fall back on to see where I won't say the mistake comes from or who the mistake comes from and everything. But when it comes to waterfall, a lot of the phases and the people that are working on different phases have documents to cover themselves, because you will sign off and you will go, you won't know what happens once your own aspect has been completed. So you want to have a document that has been checked by the right person and that has been signed off that you've done all that you needed to do. And definitely you will have a copy of it so that when you're called back to say, oh, there's an issue and you feel that the blame is coming on you, you have your documents to kind of cover your back to say, no, but this was done, and things like that. So those are the artifacts. Just a few examples of the artifacts that we've talked about, mainly for waterfall. The ones for agile, I think we're all familiar with how a product backlog looks, what a sprint backlog looks like, and then the different metrics and all that we have in place. So quickly, we also want to look at the meeting that happens during this phase. So we have the project status meeting, which we've talked about. That that's the one that has to do with the project, the progress reports that you give. The purpose is to ensure that the project, like we said, is on track according to the schedule, the budget, the scope. We want to check that out. You can see that in the document also that I shared, and to check if there's any deviation from the plan. And they will have to discuss that. What is the corrective action that we want to put in place or that we need to plan and everything and all that. They look at that. So it's a regular meeting that is led by the project manager. to review the project progress, like we said, discuss the issues, evaluate resource utilization. If there's going to be any deviation, we're going to evaluate resource utilization, or even if there is no deviation, if everything is going according to plan, also they still need to evaluate the resource utilization. We're on track when it comes to the utilization of the resources that we have in place and what has been budgeted for them. So the key attendance of this meeting, you're looking at the project manager, you're looking at the team leads, either the developer team lead or the UX, UI or UX designer lead. You're looking at the QA manager, and then the stakeholders also attend that meeting. The second meeting for waterfall, again, we'll take the waterfall one first, and then we'll come back to the agile one. The next meeting is the one we talked about, the phase gates or the milestone review meeting, which are the meetings that happen at the end of each phase. So the phase is completed. They are having that meeting based on that document that we talked about also. So the purpose of this meeting is just to evaluate all the objectives of the completed phase to ensure that it is met. These are the objectives that we have in place. Has everything been met according to quality and according to the requirement that has been put in place? The stakeholders provide feedback at that phase, okay, and then approved moving forward, so to say, and everything, if everything is going on well. So a formal review is held at the end of each phase, and they assess the deliverables, the confirm quality, they decide if the project can proceed to the next phase. And the people that do the key attendees of this meeting is the project manager, the team leads, the QA manager, and also the stakeholders also come to that meeting. The next one is the risk management meeting, which we know happens. And that meeting, the purpose is just to review any project risk that is. So if there's a project risk on the risk register that is coming up or is impacting the project at a particular time, you're calling that meeting. They evaluate the status of the existing risk, and then they discuss mitigation plan, which can be on the risk register. But like I said, using the example that I gave earlier on to say that, okay, there's a risk that our price might go up, or the price of, let's say it's cement. Now, price of cement might go up by the time we get to maybe the second floor of the building and everything and all that, even though we can't lock down price. So even if they can't lock down price, there might be, because that's the supplier can say that, okay, you can't lock down my price, but I promise you that it won't go up more than 10%. What if that business goes out of, like we said, goes out of business by that particular time, and they need to find somebody else who has not given them any assurance of any price lockdown or 10% fixed price and everything? So that is a meeting where they look at that risk and everything and mitigate what do we need to do, to mitigate that plan based on the risk that has been identified. It could be a risk that is on the register. It could be a new risk entirely that has been identified, and they just need to mitigate what needs to be actioned. So there has to be focus on analyzing and addressing that risk that has come into play. And the key attendees of that meeting is the project manager. There could be a risk manager also. And also you have the team leads, the QA manager there also. So at the risk management meeting, you won't get the stakeholders, because mostly you will update them, but you won't get them into that meeting, except if that risk happens to be related to their side. That's when you might get them into the meeting. And then you have the change control meeting. Like we said, it's all the purpose of that is to discuss and agree on how to control the change. We talked about the change request documents. That meeting has to do with the change control board. We're looking at how that change is going to impact everything: cost, schedule, quality, timeline, and all that. So that's the meeting they sit at with that document, that we talked about earlier on, to review things and approve or deny. So it's not all changes that are approved. Some can be denied if they feel that it's not that critical, or it's not that impactful, or it's not that needed priority, sort of. It can be denied also, depending on how it impacts the project. Okay, so and the key attendees there are the project manager, and then the change control board, which consists, at times may include the stakeholders, the team leads, and sometimes the QA manager. So they form a change board because they all have a part to play during that meeting. So that's the change control meeting. So the other meeting for waterfall is the quality review, like we talked about also about the document meeting. And the purpose of this meeting is just to confirm that deliverables, it meets the predefined quality standard. It's standard, it's in line with what has been said, it's validating what has been put in place, the requirement is being met, quality, if there's any issue, defects that are identified, they are documented, and they are assigned for correction also. So where the quality, the QA manager or the QA is working, the testers working with them, found anything and all that, they make sure that they assign it. This is the person that worked upon it on it, maybe the developer that worked on it, and they're putting that person's name against who needs to fix it, as we've seen in the documents that I shared. Okay, so that meeting is held, and like we said, it's all about assessing the quality, and then if there are any issues or defects, assigning the person that is going to deal with it. So the key attendees of that meeting is the QA manager is there, the project manager is there, and also the team lead needs to be there for the developers in order to kind of discuss what needs to be done. So those are the meetings, the key meetings. Depending on the kind of project it is, also you can have more meetings than that, but at least those are the basic ones. So for Agile, quickly, we want to look at the Agile one. We know that the first one for Agile, you have the sprint planning meeting. And you know that is the meeting. The purpose of that meeting is to establish the sprint goal. It defines what needs to be done during that sprint. It helps to form also what forms part of the sprint backlog. That's what that meeting is, and the team is able to commit to say that we're able to do all these things, all this list that has been prioritized to be worked on during the sprint. And the key attendees of that meeting, as we are well aware, is the product owner, the scrum master, the business analyst. If that team has a business analyst, you have the developers, you have the testers also at that meeting. And the next meeting is the daily stand-up. The daily stand-up, the purpose is just to keep the team aligned on the daily goals, allows for a quick problem solving, like we said, to keep the sprint on track, so that we're getting updates, we're doing what needs to be done. That's what that meeting is for. We know it's for 15 minutes, a very short meeting that is for 15 minutes, and they just provide kind of a status update, discuss the challenges, or coordinate work that needs to be done. There are times when what you think you're going to work on the next day based on updates from that meeting might not be what you end up working on, maybe because there's a priority and your team lead is saying, can you leave that for now and deal with this and all that and everything. So that daily meeting mainly is just to plan how the day, the work for the day is going to go. And the key attendees at that meeting is just mainly the developers. That is their meeting. So the scrum masters can be there. It's optional. The business analyst can be there, maybe just to give clarity if anybody needs clarity for any requirements. So it's mainly for the developers and the testers, because they're the ones doing the work. So all these people can be there, but it's optional, like I said, for the scrum masters, and if the BA is not needed, but it's good for the BA to be there. Like I said, if there's clarity that is needed for any requirements, they might be there. Okay, so the next one we want to quickly look at is the sprint review meeting. And the purpose of this meeting, we all know, is for the team at the end of the sprint to be able to showcase what has been done, the increment that has been added to the product, to the stakeholders, and get feedback from them, and also update the product backlog based on the feedback. So the product backlog might be impacted based on the feedback that is coming from the stakeholders, where we again have to go and reprioritize things that are inside the backlog. So that's what the sprint review meeting is. And the key attendees is the Scrum Master, the development team, the product owner, and the stakeholders. So after that meeting, you have the sprint retrospective meeting. And that is the meeting that it facilitates continuous improvement. It allows the team to reflect on what has been done, what they've learned in the past sprint based on experience, adjust their processes, adjust how they work, adjust their ways of working if need be, or just put improvement plan in place for the next sprint. And the key attendees for that meeting is the Scrum Master and the development team. So the product owner doesn't really need to be in that meeting. Then we have the backlog refinement meeting. Like I said, this keeps the backlog updated. It's clear, it's well defined. It gives better understanding to the team, the development team themselves. It helps the team to learn more about the upcoming sprint. Also, so this is what we need to work on. Working on this one is dependent on that, working on that one and everything, because the backlog is refined, it's prioritized. Things are rearranged based on feedbacks or based on change requirements or new requirements coming in. And the key attendees of this meeting is the product owner themselves, who facilitates that meeting mostly, the development team, and the Scrum Master. Most times is optional for the Scrum Master. The key people that are required to be at that meeting is the product owner and the developers. The developers being developers, BA, if the BA is in the team, and also the QAs. Okay. So most times also at that meeting is where first set of estimation comes in. So there are times when even the estimates that are done during the refinement goes into sprint planning or into the sprint without being changed. There are times when it's depending on any new development that comes. So those are the meetings that you have and the key people that attend the meeting for this particular phase. Okay, so quickly we want to look at the importance of this monitoring and controlling phase. So we'll look at the one for waterfall first, and then we'll look at the one for agile, because they're a bit different, because the things that happens during those phases are different for each approach. So we're looking at, so the first one for waterfall is ensuring adherence to the project plan. Okay, so what in waterfall, the project plan is like we said, is the established document. It's the established at the start of the sprint and is intended to guide. So it's like a guide for that for the phases or the life cycle of that particular project. So it helps them to ensure that it helps the monitoring, to ensure that the project is on track. So you can say it's like a kind of a roadmap that guides what is being done during the implementation during the life cycle of that project. Also, one of the importance of this phase is that it helps to manage scope and prevent scope creep. Like I said, with the adherence to the project plan, there is very minimal opportunity of scope creep. And that's due to the rigidness, if I can put it that way, of waterfall. So because we're sticking to the plan, it helps to prevent unnecessary scope creep, unnecessary adding of new requirements or going out of the frame or out of the box or out of the borderline of what has been agreed to, so to say. Easily scope creep comes when it comes into waterfall, but into agile, but when it comes to waterfall, it's a bit rigid, and so it manages scope because it's given to a plan, and then it prevents scope creep going forward. Also, there's maintenance of quality standards through the phase review. So at the end of each phase, like we said, because of the review that is being emphasized at the phase gate review, it helps to assess and approve each phase deliverable before it moves on. So even though we say that, okay, in waterfall, you have to finish this phase before you go into this phase, at times with that review in place, that review has to be signed off, has to be agreed upon before they go into the next phase. So with this, they also do reviews, just that they do their review at the end of the phase rather than, the way Agile does his own iteratively at the end of every sprint. So if the phase is like 3 months or a phase is like 6 months in waterfall, then that means the review is done at the end of the 6 months. And then you're bringing up feedback. So this has to be changed, this has to be changed before you go ahead. But that is at the end of 6 months. So it impacts on budget, it impacts on timeline. But because of this phase, also they're able to do that review, because if that review is not done at the end of each phase and they leave it till the end of the whole project, it's going to be worse, than if it is being done at when it's being done at the end of each phase. At least each person that needs to get paid and be signed off and all that, they get to review what they've done before they leave and all that, or else you pay them their money, they're gone. Even when you need them back, might be negotiation for more money to be paid and all that. But when you do a review before you give them their full money before they go and all that, if there's any mistake they need to correct, there is a window, there's an opening for that to be done before that phase is signed off, and then the next phase starts. And then also the risk identification and mitigation is also another important aspect of this phase, because with it they're able to assess assess what needs to be done. Again, we know that when it comes to waterfall, the risk management is at the start of the planning phase. Things are being put in place and all that, but even that register is being used to monitor and control the risk throughout the project. So it's an important part of that phase also that comes in. So because the goal is to identify and mitigate risk before they impact the timeline or before they impact the budget. We know that's what risk management is all about. And then you're looking also at budget control and financial insight. So this phase helps the budget control. So we're not over, because of that control or progress report. In the progress report, there's a part of the progress report where we saw what has been spent so far, what percentage of the budget has been spent. This phase also helps to control the budget and any financial oversights that might come in. And that's why I said that where there are changes, also you need to look at the budget to say, oh, this changes that you're talking about is going to impact the budget we have, because this is what we have, this is what is remaining, because you've been carrying them along with the progress report or the report you're giving. It helps also. So it forms an important part of this particular phase. And that's why this phase is needed in the life cycle of any project that is being run. Okay, so we quickly just look at the ones for the importance of monitoring or controlling or tracking. I'd rather use the word tracking when it comes to Agile, because that's what Agile does mainly, just to track continuous progress tracking. That's what Agile does. So with Agile, we're looking at the team collaboration. Okay, so during this phase, we know there is team collaboration throughout the project life cycle of Agile. There's team collaboration. It's all about collaborating with the stakeholders, the team collaborating, helping themselves out, working as team player, their performance, their productivity is being tracked as they go along. There's that strong emphasis on team dynamics and productivity when it comes to Agile, the team themselves collaborating with the stakeholders, all of them working together as a product team, not Scrum team now. So the product team has to do with having both the Scrum team who are doing the development work, and then also having the stakeholders there. So all of them collaborating that to get the feedback from the stakeholders, motivates the team, the development team, to be able to do what they need to do and bring about efficiency at the end of the project. Okay, so we know that Agile is all about flexibility and adaptability, and during the tracking period, that is what you get. So we're flexible, respond to change on time, flexible in responding to change, adapting, adjusting based on the feedback that has been received, are all part of the tracking progress for Agile. And then you're looking at quality control and continuous testing, because when it comes to Agile, we're testing the quality is being tested for every sprint. They're testing, bugs are raised, defects are raised, they are fixed, they are retested again as they go along every sprint. It brings about quality. The quality is improving. And then also with the feedback from the stakeholders also during review and adjusting based on that feedback also ensures that there's quality in what is being done. Also, this phase enhances stakeholders engagement, which we know Agile welcomes and emphasizes on through the sprint reviews, as we've said. Stakeholders are satisfied even before the end of the project, because they're being carried along throughout the project's life cycle. The risk management is real time, like we said. Once we identify it, we're jumping on meetings or we're discussing it daily as we go along. It's real time and it's being dealt with even as much as it goes along. Let's give an example of a team working on enhancing or even working on a big project where they've done a release and there is feedback coming from prod, and it comes in even though it's unplanned and all that. We're working on it, so real risk is being managed immediately we have the feedback. They're working on it, they're resolving what needs to be done, they're giving it priority in the sprint and working on what needs to be done, so that the end users are satisfied, the end users are not totally blocked, and they're satisfied with what they are getting. And then we have continuous progress tracking, which is the main aspect for Agile when it comes to what we can refer to as the monitoring and controlling phase for Agile. Is the continuous progress in tracking what needs to be done, in tracking incremental delivery. So as a delivery manager, you're tracking the delivery. As a PM or APM, Agile project manager, you are tracking the delivery. What is the goal? Did we meet the goal? Why didn't we meet the goal? You're looking at release. What is the timeline for this release? What needs to be in place? Having a checklist for release, because you have the release plan also. Checking it, what are the deliverables that we're supposed to release, at that target date? Is everything going to be released? Is everything ready to be released and all that? Some teams release at the end of their sprint, some do monthly release, some do quarterly release and all that. But because of that incremental delivery to the end users, the satisfaction is there for them, continuous improvement is put in place, and we're tracking that delivery, like I said, as we go along. So these are the important aspects of this monitoring and controlling phase for both Agile, like we said, and also for waterfall. Okay, so we just want to quickly, in conclusion, so to say, I just want to quickly say in conclusion that the focus really for this phase, the focus and the frequency for this phase is based on the structure of each approach. Okay, it's based on the structure and it's based on the flow of each approach. And that's why I've decided to, which I know we know prior to this, just to show the model of both of them so that we understand why we have what we have in place for waterfall, and then what we have in place for Agile is because of their flow, is because of their structure. So for waterfall, monitoring focuses on tracking the completion of each phases. So if the requirement phase finishes, that's when we start monitoring and tracking design, because design starts at the end of requirements. The same for development. You can't do the monitoring and controlling for development during the design stage because it has not started then. But when it comes to Agile, because of the circle and iterative model that Agile has, all these phases that waterfall has, that one has to finish before the other start, everything goes in together in a particular circle for Agile. So you're having the design, you're having the development, you're having the testing, the deployment, and the review all working together, not one finishing before the other. Definitely the developers will have to finish developing before the tester picks. But when the tester picks what the work that the developers have done and they test it and they found a defect and all that, immediately in the same circle, in the same sprint, they are, sending it back to them to say, I found this bug, you need to fix it and all that and everything. So they are working in a circle. They are doing everything together. They are cross-functional team and they are all working together in a particular sprint. So you can say their own sprints, sort of, that circle is a phase, but everything is being done in that particular phase or in that particular circle together. Not that the developer has finished developing completely everything that has to do with that project before the QA start start testing completely what needs to be done. Everything is done iteratively. We pick a little bit, we do it, we test it, we review it, we get feedback, we deploy that, and then we pick the other one and all that. And that is how Agile was. And that is why when it comes to Agile, the monitoring and the controlling, the tracking of the continuous progress tracking is all true. That's why we could use the word continuous. It doesn't stop, and then this one starts, that's when you control again, and that one starts is when that's when you control. It's continuous and is all inclusive of all the work that needs to be done, or everyone that is working on the project. So I think that's all that we have. And that helps for Agile, that helps to add value to the output at the end of the day. It's not as if with waterfall you don't get output. It's just that when the output comes and all that, if there are any issues, it might necessarily not be possible to go and do it, or it might cost more time or more money to go and do the change or the adaptation or adjustments that needs to be done. In some situation, like I said, if it's construction, by the time you started building and all that, you can't go back and correct a foundation and all that. But we do have some government regulations where if the specification or guidelines, government regulation guidelines are not followed, you will get a situation where the buildings will be pulled down in order for the right corrections to be done. Well, in good countries that does that. So that's all for tonight. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions that they want to ask. Any question from anyone?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, Miracle.
You made mention of okay, I have two questions. The first one, you made mention of control board. And
Let me stop sharing.
okay, let me just stop recording also. Okay, you made mention of this change control board.
Yeah.
And I think during our last session, you made mention of CAP, that is a change advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to know the difference between them.
I think it's the same. It's just that different organizations calls it different names. So maybe I think Bola was the one that took the execution stage. So maybe in our own organization they call it change advisory board.
No,
But it's the
I
same.
don't even mean Bola. I mean the last section we had a session with Ayo, the project manager
Yeah.
facility.
So yeah, okay, even if then, so it's still the same. So when you have the change advisory boards, those are the people that come together to decide if, like I said, a change gets approved or denied based on what is in the change request. So they're looking, and the main thing for them is how impactful is this change that you're bringing? Is it a minimal one? Is it something cosmetic? Is it something we can do without? How is it impacting what needs to be done? So, like I said, not just because there is a change request doesn't mean it gets approved all the time. It might be changed. So you could have a change advisory board. There is still a board, it's still a change and a board. It's just the advisory part in between. Or you could have, like I said, the one I said, a change board. But there has to be that board is just a committee of people, the right people, the appropriate people that needs to sit down and review that change request that has come in and then decide if they are approving it or they are refusing it.
Okay. Then the second question, yeah. I know this is not the first time I'm hearing you calling the BAs part of the dev team. I
Mhm.
think most of your classes you call them as part of the dev team.
Yeah.
And for capacity planning,
Mhm.
why don't they put the BAs involved in capacity planning since they are also called the dev team also?
Okay. So initially in the Scrum guide, we have what we call development team. Yeah. So the development team consists of all the people that I've just mentioned, the business analysts, the developers, the QAs are called the development team. And then when the Scrum Guide was updated, the I've forgotten his name now. I know one of them is Jeff. I can't remember the second person's name and all that. Believe that there shouldn't be a team in a team. What they mean by a team in a team is when it comes to agile, you don't want to confuse things too much. So you're saying where there's Scrum team, and then you're saying development team. So that is having a team, the development team, in another team, the Scrum team. So in order to remove the word team happening, so they just want to call them one team, which is the Scrum team, and then rather than have development team, you'll have developers. So the developers now consist of the business analyst, the software developer themselves, and the software testers. Now, why you don't have your BAs giving you capacity for a sprint is because the BAs work ahead of sprints. What the BAs are doing in sprint 2 is the work for sprint 3. What the BAs are doing in sprint 0 is the work for sprint 1. So what needs to be done in sprint 1, they've done it before. So they work ahead of the sprint. So there is no way to put, like I said, their capacity in. Now, why we just keep to the developers and the testers is because they are the ones carrying out actual development work. Remember, what the BAs are doing is giving you requirements. This is what you need to develop. They are not actually carrying out that work themselves. They are not the one programming. They are not the one doing the coding. They just give them what business wants, what the stakeholders want. They've gone to meet the stakeholders and they've collected the requirements. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. This is what needs to be, the acceptance criteria. It has to be this, it has to be that, it has to be that, it has to be that. The person going into the system, into the environment, the backend to do the coding based on the instruction in the requirement that has been given is the developer. The person that is going to test what has been done in the back end or the front end, wherever the QAs are testing from, is the QA. So those are the ones that are actually carrying out the development work. But the person that gives them the requirements to do that is the BA. And that's why they've been categorized with them. And I think another reason why they've been categorized with them is just so to say that these are the people, that at times the BA is seen as, if you can put it, as the product, coming from the product aspect of things. Why the developers, like I said, are the ones that are actually developing programming, and also the testers also, they do their own coding and everything and all that on the environment to test what has been done and all that. So that's why they don't give capacity. The BAs don't give capacity. The Scrum Masters or the product owner don't give capacity. Or else what you will have in place is you're saying, I have 10 people to do this work, when actually you might have just 7 people doing the development work. And it will mess up your chart. It will even mess up it's like falsifying the stats that you're going to use to give the team in order for them to help improve themselves.
Oh, thank you, Madam.
You're welcome. Do we have any other question from anyone else?